हरि ओम. ओम श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः. ओम समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्. हरि ओम. A reading of Param Poojya Guruji Swami Tejomayananda ji's book Hindu Culture, an introduction from chapter 10 onwards. Chapter 10. The scriptures. The basic scriptures, Shastras of the Hindus are the Shrutis, Smritis, Puranas and Itihasas. Shrutis, the Vedas, are said to be eternal. People question, how can the Vedas be eternal? We do not believe this because we think of the Vedas merely as books. Certainly a book cannot be eternal. Yet, as has been mentioned before, the Vedas are actually a body of knowledge, of truths governing creation, and such knowledge is not something that is created or destroyed. It is ever existent. Newton did not create the law of gravity, even though he is named after him. It is named after him. He only discovered it. That law or force was ever present in the universe. The knowledge of it, therefore, was also always present. This is why we never say that a scientific law has been created, only that it has been discovered, because the knowledge of it was covered at first by ignorance, and then that covering was, so to speak, removed. Once in a chemistry class, the teacher told his students that oxygen was discovered in the 16th century. So one student asked, what were people breathing before that time? Did it mean that oxygen was not there prior to its discovery? Of course not. In the same way, knowledge is eternal, and the Vedas, which they are synonymous with knowledge, are also eternal. Revelation. The Vedas are technically termed Shruti, revealed knowledge. That they are revealed is an important point. They are not the composition of a human being, arrived at through intellectual and logical reasoning based on sense perception. The Sanskrit verbal root shru means to hear, and shruti means that which is heard and which is not a human composition. For this reason, the Vedas are said to be apaurishaya, not of human origin, and are considered as revelations. But who revealed the knowledge? The scriptures say the Vedas are the breath of God. As long as we live, we breathe naturally and effortlessly. The Vedas too were effortlessly revealed by the Lord to great rishis, whose minds were pure, single-pointed, and attuned to God through meditation. Revelation of knowledge is something like a radio, which, when tuned to the frequency of a particular radio station, receives the sound waves and then reproduces the broadcast program. When we hear the program, we do not give credit to the radio by saying, what a nice talk that radio gave. In the same way, these pure-minded rishis were like receivers who had tuned their minds to the frequency or vibrations of the revelations of the Lord. Thus, they were able to receive divine knowledge, which they then imparted to their disciples. The rishis took no personal credit for what they heard and taught because that knowledge was important. and something that should be known by all. If we can just learn to tune our minds to the higher, we too can all become great rishis. In summary, Shrutis are the breath of the Lord. They are eternal and revealed knowledge. Smritis. The second category of scriptures are called Smritis. The Smritis root Smru means to remember and Smriti means memory. The Smritis are knowledge that is remembered. When we learn something from someone and then teach it to other, our method of teaching will differ from person to person. Though all of us as students may learn from one and the same teacher, may learn from one and the same teacher, our individual ways of practicing and teaching that knowledge will be modified according to the time, need, circumstances, and the people to whom we are speaking. That knowledge which we teach and speak of from memory is called Smriti. We have not composed or created that knowledge, but are imparting it as we remember it. Smriti, practical application of Shruti. In the Vedic times, there were great kings and rishis who had studied the Vedas and who had practiced, mastered, and experienced the essence of that knowledge in their lives. There were others who felt that the knowledge imparted by the Shruti was very difficult to understand and live. So they wanted something more practical, the application of this knowledge in their life. This made it necessary for the great masters to communicate and teach the Shruti according to the needs of the society at that time. This is also necessary for times constantly change. Society is not static but dynamic. Although values are eternal, the way in which they translated into action and lived in our lives varies. Thus, the Smritis were composed. In fact, it is because of Smriti Shastra that the Hindu Dharma has survived through time despite numerous invasions and onslaughts upon the culture. The great masters come at different times to tell us not to become rigid in our thoughts and actions but to be more flexible and to live this knowledge in a way which is suitable to that period. For in that, one should wake up early, bathe in the Ganga river, and offer prayers to Lord's Son. But how are we to do this nowadays? If we are not near the Ganga, we can go to any river to our vicinity, but there is no river in our town, or if we live in a country other than India, it does not matter. We can just remember the Ganga while standing under the shower. Wherever we are, and this itself will be Ganga Snan. This is an example of a practical application of a Shruti injunction which when taught by a master is called Smriti. The second purpose of Smriti Shastra is to tell us what our specific duties and responsibilities are. When we are today by the Shruti to when we are told by the Shruti to strictly perform our duties, dedicating them to the Lord, we always have the problem of knowing exactly what our duty is. It is in the Smriti Shastra that we find duties specific to our stage and status in life, whether we are students, householders, kings, administrators, engineers, doctors, and lawyers, or lawyers. Manu and Manusmriti. Many great masters have composed different smritis. As a result, we have many smriti shastras such as Parashar, Smriti, Gautam Smriti, and Kautilya Smriti. Even the Bhagavad Gita is technically considered a smriti because Lord Krishna remembered the knowledge that was the essence of the Upanishads and taught it to Arjun in his own words. However, the Gita has enjoyed the status also of a Shruti due to the fact that it focuses on the spiritual knowledge than it does on day to day duties and observances. For the understanding of our specific duties and for the benefit of society, the most famous and important Smriti is the Manusmriti. As the name implies, this scripture was composed by Manu, who was the mind-born son of the creator, Lord Brahma. The Sanskrit word Manushya and Manava, meaning human being, have come from Manu, the first man. I think that the word Manushya only later became man in English. Thus, in Hindu Dharma, we are all regarded as the children of Manu. When Lord Brahma started creating, it is said that Manu, the man, was born from one half of his mind, and Shatarupa, a woman, was born from the other half. Shatarupa became Manu's wife, and from these two came the rest of creation. We read a similar account in the Bible where God created Adam and Adam's rib Eve was created, and from Adam's rib Eve was created. Thereafter they became the parents of all the other human beings. Manu's role in the universe was similar to that of a religion minister of the total cosmos. His job was to protect Dharma and see that people follow the righteous way of life. Manu assures the maintenance of Dharma through sages, prophets, devotees, and saints who come into the world from time to time. Lord Brahma himself taught the Dharma Shastras to Manu, and it was Manu's duty to impart this knowledge to the rishis, who in turn taught the rest of the society. In the first chapter of the Manusmriti, therefore, we find Manu being approached by sages and asking him, O great Lord, you know the essence rahasya of the Dharma Shastra. Please teach it to us for the welfare of the entire society. Everyone should know what is their common and specific dharma. Manu teaches how the whole creation came from one God. He tells them further that it was Lord Brahma who taught all to him and that he was in turn taught sage Bhrigu. Manu then requests sage Bhrigu to impart the knowledge to the sages present. Thus, the whole Manusmriti is sage Bhrigu's discourses to all the other sages. The problem of desires. In the world, we find that everyone engages in various activities to fulfill their desires. As Manusmriti says, whatever is done by a human being, it is prompted by some desire. Everyone believes that they will become happy when their desires are fulfilled. But there lies the problem. In the process of trying to fulfill a desire, a strange thing happens. As Manusmriti explains in another verse, desires are not satiated by their fulfillment. The more one tries to satisfy them, the more they grow. Curiously, we do not recognize that our attempts to fulfill a desire itself gives rise to more desires, and hence they multiply. Though one may gain a temporary satisfaction, but trying to quench a desire by fulfilling it is like trying to put off a fire by adding fuel to it. The fire only increases. We also know that the more desire desires a person has, the more agitated his or her mind will be. As long as desires exist in the mind, there will also be restlessness, fear, anxiety, and constant worry. I do not know whether my desire will be fulfilled or not. How or when will it be fulfilled? If it is fulfilled, how long will I be able to enjoy it? As a consequence of these worries, many other negative emotions such as anger and frustration arise. In other words, to be full of desires is not a very desirable state. Desirable state. The best principle would be to give up all desires, as the scriptures say. Freedom from desire is total happiness. At the same time, to become desireless seems impossible. So what should we do? We realize that desires create problems and that desirelessness is good but seemingly impossible to attain. Then can we live with these desires and fulfill them without creating new ones? At the same time, how can we grow out of our present desires? The beauty of the Dharma Shastra is that it prescribes how to attain these goals, to rise above the desires and reach immortality. Dealing with this problem is the heart of and the art of the Dharma Shastra. Why is it essential to know this art? Let us take an analogy. We may try to avoid driving on the freeway as there is always a possibility of an accident. But if it is a necessity, then we should definitely learn the art of driving properly and know the traffic rules so that we can reach our destination safely. Or we might feel it would be nice if we never had to eat, but we must eat in order to live. Yet, once we start eating, there is the other problem of not being able to stop, particularly when there is a lot of junk food or fast food around. We may also develop a craving for one particular kind of food. But if we must eat, then we should certainly learn when to eat, what to eat, and so on. In the same way, the teachers of Smritis understood our problem, though desirelessness is a desired state and leads to true happiness. A human being cannot suddenly become desireless. The scriptures therefore teach us how to live and deal with our existing desires without becoming slaves to them and how to ultimately outgrow them. Thus, the Smritis tells us that the best state is to attain its desirelessness, for then the mind will be ever at peace. Yet, this state is not easily attained. We find it impossible to give up all our desires, nor do we find permanent happiness by trying to fulfill them. This is our problem, and to solve it, we must have proper discrimination. Which desires should be fulfilled and which, in what manner? How can we live so that there is neither continuous restlessness of the mind nor separation of it? The Smritis teach us how to live a life of discretion and righteousness and how to fulfill our desires in a way that will ultimately help us grow out of them. This will be the topic of our next chapter. Part 3, the essence of Dharma. All, Swami Chinmaya said, all weaknesses are transmuted into strengths when the right spiritual values are accepted and the seeker takes the daring resolve to live the spiritual quest. Live your life continuously all the 24 hours in the consciousness of the divine and the supreme, the truth and the eternal. Play the game of life. Play the part to which you have been called on the stage. But do not forget the great mission in life, the great goal that is to be achieved. Live along the stage life perfectly and play the part exactly as the Lord, the manager, and the playwright has intended it to be played. His intentions are codified and indicated in the great textbooks on Dharma, which preach the higher values of life, that is, the ethical and moral rules of life. Live well, live in kindness, love, and understanding. Chapter 11, Indicators of Dharma. What is Dharma? The Vedas say that four things determine what is Dharma: Shruti, Smriti, good people, good noble conduct, as accepted by society, Sadachara, and one's own inner joy, Sasya Priyam Atmanaha. In other words, when we are performing an action, we can tell whether it is our Dharma by questioning whether or not the action is approved by Shruti, Smriti, society's code of ethics, and by determining whether the action is noble and gives us joy and peace. How is Dharma determined by Shruti and Smriti? Let us see how an action is considered legal or illegal in a particular country. An action which is legal in this country may be illegal in another country where the laws are different, as in the case of alcohol, which is legal in the United States but prohibited in Arabic countries. Legality and illegality cannot be judged by the action itself, but by the constitution of that particular country. In the same way, we can determine what actions are in accordance with Dharma by knowing the Shrutis and Smritis. Although an action may be legal, it is not always considered moral, or an action may be both legal and moral, but does not bring us happiness. We should understand then that if an action lacks one of these indicators, it is still not perfect dharma. Our actions should be in accordance with all four Chaturvidha Dharma Lakshana. Religions often give injunctions in terms of do's and don'ts. If you do not do one particular action, it will be considered adharma, unrighteous, and if you do another, it will be dharma, righteous. For example, one of the 10 commandments is, "Thou shalt not steal." However, this gives only a very general outline of dharma, for there are many difficult and complicated situations in life for which there are no easy black and white solutions. The Shruti and Smriti also provide a general understanding of Dharma and Adharma, which most of us have heard from childhood. Speak the truth, speak pleasingly, speak for the welfare of others, and speak as a friend. The scriptures also say, do not eat meat and do not drink alcohol. These actions constitute adharma, and we can clearly see the ill effects of indulging in them. For instance, the influence of alcohol prevents the mind from functioning properly and makes accident statistics soar. The first aspect, Smriti Shastra says, in following Dharma, the first and foremost aspect is good conduct in life. Achara Prathamo Dharma. We should be able to discriminate whether our actions are in accordance with the moral values of the society in which we live. The scriptures clearly say that a person may be learned and scholarly, a knower of the Vedas, an expert in conducting rituals or in giving religious discourses. But if his conduct is not virtuous, then all his erudition is useless. On the other hand, a person with little scholarship and learning, but whose conduct is good, will be much more respected by others. Ravana, for instance, was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. His devotion was so great that while performing rituals, he would cut off one of his heads. He had 10 to offer it to the Lord. For this sacrifice, Lord Shiva gave Ravana the boon that each time one of his head would be cut off in battle, a new one would appear. Even though Ravana made such a great personal sacrifice, can we consider him a great devotee? No, because his conduct in life in many ways was not good at all. Others, like Hiranyakashipu, were also men of great penance and performed many rituals, but they had no love, compassion, and sympathy for people in their hearts. They were considered to be only Rakshasas, demons. It is interesting to note that when you read the Sanskrit word Rakshasa backwards from right to left, it becomes Akshara. Akshara in general refers to the alphabet and literature, and Sakshara means one who knows the alphabet, who is an educated, literate person. So, ironically, it is said that when literate people, Saksharas, become perverted in their minds, they become Rakshasas. Demons are not just beings with horns and tails, but the educated, literate people who have become crooked and perverted. For instance, many politicians think that their private lives and actions are above all laws and moral codes. But the truth is that as long as we are a part of society, especially if we are leaders in the public eye, there is no such thing as being beyond the law. Even in our private life, we are held accountable for everything we do. Duty before questions. Another important meaning of Achara Prathamo Dharma is that we should learn to obey and do our duty first before asking a lot of questions. When it comes to doing our duties, however, first we generally ask, why should I do it? To ask why is very easy, but we do not always have the maturity or knowledge to understand the entire principle and foundation of Dharma. At this moment, we all have our likes and dislikes. We get carried away by them and do only what we like, not what we do not like. Consequently, our discrimination becomes clouded, and when difficult situations arise in life, we do not know how to make decisions and act correctly. This is because we have never practiced living according to dharma, but have lived only according to our whims and fancies. When we learn to listen to and obey the scriptures, the mind gradually becomes purer, and we then understand totally the principle of dharma. The two important meanings of the scriptural injunction good conduct comes first. Achara prathamo dharma, or one should do one's duty before asking many questions, and secondly, in life, good behavior is the foremost importance. We may have performed many rituals, built many temples, or given many discourses on Vedanta. Yet, if our conduct remains bad, these good actions do not serve much purpose. Actions that give joy. The fourth indication of dharma, whether an action gives inner joy or peace, swasya priyamatmanaha, is also very important. If an action causes agitations or guilt, and we say, why did I do that? Then that action is not completely according to dharma, even though it may be in accordance with Shruti, Smriti, and Sadachar. At the same time, though I may like or enjoy something, we should think what is its effect on my life and mind. A person may say, I feel very happy when I drink. But if Shruti and Smritis do not approve it, then it is not an action of dharma. A still deeper implication of this injunction is as follows. We care for our happiness and do not want sorrow in our lives. We should therefore respect the fact that others also want happiness in their lives. We have no right to cause unhappiness to other people in the process of gaining happiness for ourselves. To destroy, harm, or hurt the other people is adharma. Although determination of dharma is not always very easy, it can become simple if we have a sincere desire to live a good life of dharma and are completely honest with ourselves. Then everything will fall in place naturally. Two types of adharma. Essentially, there are kinds of adharma pointed out in the scriptures. The first is called samanya dharma. Two types of dharma. Essentially, there are two types of dharma pointed out in the scriptures. The first is called samanya dharma, the universal values to be followed by all people in life, irrespective of nationality, age, profession, or station. The second is called varnashram dharma, the specific duties given to each individual and respect to his or her with respect to his or her age, gender, status in society, and so on. The Sanskrit word dharma means that which holds everyone and everything together, that which integrates the personality and unifies the society. We know that what Shruti and Smriti point out as good conduct and what gives inner joy in dharma, because if we follow those actions, they will lead to an integrated personality and also unified society. Dharma is also defined as that which gives us both material prosperity and spiritual unfoldment. Samanya Dharma, Manu Bhagwan has said, there are 10 values in life that characterize Dharma and that should be followed by all people. These 10 values are Dhruti, fortitude or forbearance, Shama, forgiveness or the ability to endure cheerfully, Dhamma, control over our organs of action, Asteya, non-stealing, Shaucha, purity, Indriya Nigraha, mastery over the organs of perception, Dhi, using the faculty of discrimination, Vidya, knowledge, Satya, truthfulness, and Akrodha, absence of anger. Are these values not necessary for all people at all times? It is for this reason that they are called as Samanya, eternal or universal. First, fortitude, Dhruti. It is the capacity to hold on to something. In the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Dhruti is said to be of three kinds: Tamasic, Rajasic, and Sattvic. Tamasic Dhruti is holding on to things such as sleep, food, and wrong notions. Rajasic Dhruti is holding on to money, power, and pleasure for which we are ready to do anything. Sattvic Dhruti is the ability to rise above all obstacles, difficulties, and doubts while pursuing a noble goal in life. A person with such dhruti may be physically or mentally tired or may even question when he is doing certain work. May even question why he is doing certain work, but he will remind himself again and again, I must hold on to this goal and achieve it. Whenever we mention dhruti from now on, we will be referring to this sattvic dhruti, that strength or ability with which we hold on to our noble values of life. Forgiveness, Kshama. The highest form of forgiveness is when the feeling of being offended does not even arise in our mind. Once a lady felt very offended by something that her husband had done, and her husband begged her to forgive him. She finally did. Yet once in a while, the wife would again remind her husband that she had forgiven him. Exasperated, the man finally asked, you said long ago that you had forgiven me, so why do you keep reminding me of it? The wife said, well, I just do not want you to forget that I have forgiven you. Can this be an example of real forgiveness? No. The highest form of Kshama is not to even feel any offense, insult, or hurt. Control of the sense organs of action, Dhamma. If we get angry at someone and immediately want to strike out at him, this is not Dhamma. However, if we are not able to control the feeling of anger arising in our mind, but are at least able to control the outward expression of it, this shows some degree of Dhamma. Without even this much control, we only act on impulse and become worse than animals. Non-stealing, asteya. It means not taking another's possessions. What right do we have to deprive someone of their wealth, prosperity, or achievement? There was a thief who used to steal from various houses and bring the stolen objects home. Then one day another thief broke into his house and took away everything. The thief became very upset, and his wife said to him, why are you crying now? You took all those things away from the other people and started thinking of them as yours. You never earned them, just stole them. Yet you are crying as if the things were yours. Just think how those people from whom you stole must have cried. When a person has worked hard earned and bought things with his hard-earned money, hard-earned wealth. He can call them his belongings. If we want to have those objects also, we must work hard to get them. Someone said, I worked hard to enter someone else's house to steal his things. That is not called hard work, it is called criminal activity. Asteya means that even the thought of taking someone else's wealth should not arise in the mind. Purity Shaucha. Purity does not mean standing under the shower for an hour with all the possible shampoos and soaps that are available in the market. Different soaps for the face, hands and back. Yet physical cleanliness is also needed. But more important is the purity of motive. Outwardly our action may look very noble, but inwardly our attitude may not be all that good. Therefore, for every action we perform, we must be aware of whether or not our intentions are pure. Control over the organs of perception, Shama. The mind should determine what we should see, hear, taste, touch, and so on. This control is very important and required discrimination. If we know that by seeing or hearing certain things, our mind will be polluted or agitated with desire, we should not allow ourselves to see or hear them. Discrimination, dhi. The word dhi means the intellect or faculty of discrimination. It is only with this discriminative faculty that we can practice control over the senses, dhamma and shama, or other two dharma. Knowledge, vidya. One must also know what is true knowledge. Is knowledge merely the ability to read and write in order to get a job and earn a livelihood? The scriptures say the knowledge that liberates one from all psychological entanglements is the true knowledge. This is the knowledge of the self. No doubt, we must have a job and earn money in order to live in the world. But we must also know the real final goal of all our learning and effort. Truthfulness, Satya. When we make a promise, we should fulfill it. Whatever we speak should be true, and what is true, that alone should we speak. We should always verify the truth of a statement before saying it. Without anger, akrodha. Whatever may happen, there should be no anger in the mind. To use anger as a tool to discipline someone is one thing, but when anger overwhelms the mind, we become slaves of it. Just as a slave is dictated to by one who rules him, anger should not rule over us. We should have control over anger and also have the discrimination to know when and where to show anger if necessary. The last point to emphasize here is that our attempt must be to follow and practice these values in full measure, 100%. In other activities, a 60 or 80% achievement may be good enough, but not when it comes to living our principles. If our honesty is only 80% and we are 20% dishonest, we are not really honest persons. We must live these kinds of values completely and not just partially. Also, we should never complain. Others are not following these values, so why should I? Just as we would not take poison merely because another person has taken it, we should not be affected with what other people are not doing. We should be concerned only with whether or not we are following the right values in life. We have to perfect our lives, and in this we must strive hard. 12. Vegetarianism. A question often asked by people is about being vegetarian. This is a really relevant topic because it involves the value of ahimsa or non injury, which is one important value of Sanatan Dharma. What does Manusmriti say about eating meat? The general commandment given Samanya Adesh is do not eat meat. There are a number of reasons why this injunction is given. From the spiritual standpoint, there is one self or one life that pulsates in all beings. All beings want to live happily in this world, and we do not have the moral right to take away a life or to cause any unhappiness or sorrow to others. This is simple rule of dharma. The second reason is that the greatness and dignity of human beings is their ability to sacrifice their lives for others. The person who sacrifices his comforts or wealth, his happiness, or even his life in order to protect, sustain, and help another is considered great. Therefore, if we destroy other beings for the sake of our own pleasure, we are degrading ourselves from the glory of a human life. Recently, organizations have been formed to protect forests, animals, particularly wildlife. A movement of this kind is necessary nowadays because there are many greedy and cruel people who are concerned only with their own wealth and pleasure and who are ready to destroy anything for their own sake. Human beings should sacrifice for others, not sacrifice others for their own personal comforts, pleasures, or economic gains. An argument put forth by some vegetarians is all beings have life and vegetarians to kill and eat. By some non-vegetarians is all beings have life and vegetarians to kill and eat plant life. Then why should we not eat animals? However, this argument is really a fallacious one, for if we extend this reasoning a little further, we would then be asking, why not eat human beings also? Since life subsists on life, it is necessary to kill another life no matter what we eat. Then, should we kill our old people when there is a shortage of food? That is indeed a horrible thought. How can one think of that? No one will agree with the argument when it is taken that far. Even though there is life in all beings, in both the vegetable and animal kingdoms, there are degrees of evolution and of the manifestation of intelligence. The degree of feeling and understanding of mental and physical pain is much less developed in plant life as compared to animal life. According to the Dharma Shastra, the purpose of human life is to know the truth. In order to know the truth, we must sustain our lives, but it needs to be done with discrimination. When a patient goes to a doctor, the doctor will try to treat the patient with as little medicine as possible. and without an operation. However, if an operation is necessary, the doctor performs it generally with anesthesia so as to cause the least amount of harm and discomfort to the patient. In the same way, although life is sustained with life, it should be done by causing the least pain and disturbance to others and nature. This means that even when eating vegetarian food, we should eat moderately and with discrimination. Even from an anatomical point of view, the body structure of a carnivorous animal is meant for eating meat, whereas the human body is not. From a medical standpoint, also, many people today are advised to reduce their fat and cholesterol intake, which generally means the reduction of red meat in the diet. It is regardless to explain here that not only meat eating but excessive eating of any kind is not good for health. Injunctions and concessions. When we hear these scriptural injunctions, we may wonder whether people were eating meat in the Vedic period. Yes, people were eating meat then, as they are now, and they will also be eating in the future under under certain circumstances. Even the Vedas and Dharma Shastra give permission. But please note that we should not eat meat in the injunction is the injunction given to us, and it is our dharma. The permission to eat meat is certain in certain situations is only a concession due to human weakness, which sometimes makes us incapable of living up to a higher ideal. The purpose of the scriptures in giving this concession may be illustrated by the following example. Suppose a person who is highly diabetic goes to a doctor. Ordinarily, the doctor's prescription will be to forbid the patient to have any sweets at all, for this is the correct dharma for the patient and is the best remedy for his physical health. However, if the doctor knows that the patient has a strong craving for sweets, and by forbidding them completely, the patient will most likely eat sweets on the sly. On the sly, the doctor tells the patient, "Alright, you can eat sweets once a month." Therefore, in this case, the permission to eat sweets once a month is not an injunction but a concession. In the same way, people in the world develop strong desires or cravings for things, and when they are suddenly prohibited from having them, there is a tendency to revolt against those injunctions and to find illegal or wrong ways of obtaining and enjoying the things they want. Therefore, in order to control their urges and desires, the Dharma Shastras sometimes give concessions for the highly tamasic people. Even as it gives concession, the Shastra places many conditions on the action. It explains, for instance, which animals can be eaten, the days of the month when eating meat is prohibited, and what special rituals are to be performed before eating. But the very fact that so many restrictions are laid down shows that the ideal thing to be done is to rise above this craving. Non vegetarian food was also allowed for a particular class of people, the Kshatriyas, or kingdoms, rulers of kingdoms. For other classes, such as the business people, Vaishyas, or the philosophers, teachers, Brahmins, hunting and eating meat were not allowed. Why was this distinction made? Because the Kshatriya type of people required that they have the courage to fight to protect the nation, training in attack and defense of work they do, or the need to correct a deficiency. People with tendencies for spiritual or scholarly studies were not allowed to eat meat because the mind needs to be very quiet and subtle for this type of work, whereas the warriors needed a lot of rajoguna, passionate, active nature to have the courage, passion, and ability to fight. Yet the Kshatriyas were told that after a certain age, even they should renounce that type of life, take sannyas, the order of renunciation, and go to the forest for contemplation. To summarize, the injunction given in the scriptures is not to eat meat, and when special permission is given to eat it, this is only a concession depending on the nature of the person, the time, the place, and so on. The main point is that we should not be confused as to which is the injunction and which is the concession. This, in fact, is the greatness of the scriptures. They understand the weakness of the human mind, and are able to give instructions according to individual needs. Chapter 13, the four stages of life. In the context of our present discussion, the meaning of ashram is a stage in life. The Hindu scriptures describe four stages in every human life: the brahmacharya ashram, student life; grahastha ashram, householder's life; vanaprastha ashram, life of retirement or preparatory renunciation; and the sannyas ashram, renunciate life. No real vanaprastha stage exists today because no one knows what to do in their old age except retire from professional work, go to an old age home and watch television all day. The Hindu scriptures are very scientific, considering a human being's life to be 100 years. The lifespan is divided roughly, into four stages of approximately 25 years each: student life up to 25 years, the householder's life up to 50 years, retired life up to 75 years, and renunciate's life thereafter. In fact, it is said that when you see the face of your first grandchild, it is time for retirement. Then there will not be so much generation gap problem. Remember, though we may criticize the older generation now, no matter how modern we think ourselves to be at this moment, the next generation will also consider us old and outdated. Thus, the scriptures say that before this happens, we should leave the house and prepare for renunciation. Then, after Vanaprastha, we should take sannyas and live a complete life of renunciation from all worldly affairs and cultivate total devotion and pursue spiritual knowledge alone. This is the general life plan that we must have. Student life: for each ashram or stage of life, particular duties are prescribed in the scriptures. We read in the scriptures how the student used to live and study with the teacher, performing mundan, shaving of the head, yajna, sacrifice, and agnihotra, daily sacrificial ritual. Though we may say that all this is irrelevant now, we should know that the underlying value holds true even today. The main focus of a student's life is to study. Therefore, it was said that if you are a one who is a seeker of knowledge, you must stop being a seeker of pleasures and comforts, sukharthi. On the other hand, if we are seekers of comforts, then forget about knowledge, for it will not come to us. In the present times, we are both and therefore attain neither deep knowledge nor neither deep knowledge nor satisfaction in pleasures. Due to smaller families, children get pampered with all kinds of comforts and possessions and fight with each other for them. Children become glued to the television, and statistics show us that those who watch more television actually have lower IQs, while those children who watch less television do better in their studies. The fact is that when a student runs after fancy clothes, food, pleasures and comforts, there is no time for study and concentration in study, and the mind becomes dissipated. The scriptures tell us that the first duty of the student is to be totally devoted to study and knowledge, to have devotion and respect for the teacher as well as for the books of study. These days, when students go out to sit on the lawn, if there is nothing else to sit on, they take out their books and sit on them. The students should not make any other demands on the family. If a student wants a car, for example, she should work to earn it. In student life, we were also taught about dharma and the eternal values of life, samanya dharma, which we have already discussed. They were taught the ultimate goal of life and how to prepare for it, having learned the universal and general values of living. The students would then choose their own professions and train in that particular field. Today, also, the university students take general courses first, followed by specialized courses in their chosen field. Children of royal families, for instance, were taught political science, economics, warfare, and other related sciences. Thereafter, the students were ready for the next stage of life, the householder's life. It is said in Taittiriya Upanishad 1.11.1, having given dakshina gift to your teacher in the form of that which is most dear to him and to you, do not cut off the line of descendants. Dakshina is that which is given to the teacher at the end of the course. We should give that which is not only dear to the teacher but also what is dear to us, Priya Dana, because often we keep what is dear to us and give away what we do not like. On graduation, one was qualified to earn one's livelihood, and then one was fit and free to marry and enter into the householder's life. Today, we find that nobler ideas disappearing from the student's life. They start dating even from high school. Young Indians ask me angrily, Swamiji, why do our parents prevent us from dating? We want to go to parties and enjoy like others. But then the very purpose of the student's life is defeated. The mind becomes completely distracted. They date and fall in love. They become infatuated with each other for some time. But later one of them goes away and the other is left shattered. Love is gone, study is gone, and knowledge is gone. I remind them that their whole life is before them to do all the things they want. Reserve the precious early life years of wholly for study. Reserve the precious early years wholly for study, and then you will come to lead a fulfilling life. Thus, the students must devote their entire energy to educate themselves, not only to read and write, but also to lay a strong foundation for the moral, ethical, and cultural and spiritual aspects of life. Aside from academic training, our educational systems must give students a higher ideal for which to strive. The students must become the makers of their own destiny and of the nation's destiny also. This is their great responsibility. The householder's life. Marriages are also of different types. When people ask me what is better, an arranged marriage or a love marriage, I say a successful marriage is best. Successful marriages have nothing to do with being arranged or not because there are examples of success and failure in both types of marriages. The main point is that there should be mutual love, respect, and readiness to sacrifice for each other. And this is the ideal for the householder's life. And when both partners have this ideal in mind, the marriage is successful. But if each person is selfish and only demanding from the other, there will always be a problem. There are many duties or kartavya, karmas prescribed for the householder's life. Though we cannot discuss them in great detail here, one may one very important point should be noted. The scriptures say, in those houses where the women are honored and respected, the gods dwell there. Where the women are not respected and honored, whatever one does is futile. In other words, if the lady of the house is unhappy and abused in
Jaya Shri Ram, Jaya Raghuram, Janaki Jeevana Sundar Ram, Devaganarshita
must see that the wife
Jaya Shri Ram, Jaya Raghuram, Janaki Jeevana Sundar Ram,
there will be auspiciousness and welfare of all in the house. This is the ideal for the householder's life, and if this ideal is not held by both husband and wife, there will only be fighting between them, and when children see this repeatedly, they will also fight. Such a household will be filled with conflict and violence. We see this happening nowadays more frequently. The number of broken families, unwed mothers, single parents, homes, and other such problems are on the increase. These problems will also exist in the future as long as a person is selfish and only demanding from others. We continue in next class. Hari Om. Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Hari Om.